大家好，我是 Fiske。今天这集非常的特别，我邀请到了 Eduardo Cunha， 他是目前全世界顶尖的玩家之一，也是剑盾3年期间唯一的世界冠军得主。他在2022年用苍响跟黑马王队击败对手的超级巨喷火龙擎天队，非常的精彩。除了那一年的世界冠军以外，他在其他比赛的战绩也一直都非常杰出。相信很多观众应该都对 Eduardo 有印象。尤其是如果看过我讲解官方比赛的影片，因为他即使到了现在还是很常上比赛直播。虽然 Eduardo 平时面对比赛还有对战的细节比较严谨，但是在今天访谈的后半部分会用聊天的方式跟我们分享很多他个人的有趣见闻，就会形成一个蛮有趣的反差。因为他是葡萄牙人，所以会分享很多关于葡萄牙的事情。然后这次的访谈我真的花了很多时间来安排还有制作影片，所以如果你喜欢我的影片，记得一定要按个喜欢，还有订阅我的频道哦。Thanks so much for being here. We all know who you are, but I'm sure the viewers will love to hear directly from you.
Of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Eduardo Cunha. I'm a Portuguese VGC player. I've been playing since, seriously at least, 2013. And yeah, I've had some luck to I've been very fortunate to have some very great finishes throughout the years, including being the world champion. And I'm still very excited to keep playing as long as I can.
Your 2022 World Championship win was incredible. Are there any particular battles or memorable moments that you will never forget?
Yeah, for sure. I think like the finals, of course, like everything about the finals is unforgettable. I think like the game 1, the way I was able to come back, then game 2, the way I thought I was going to win, and then the Groudon barely survives the Astral Barrage. And then game 3, when I knew I was going to be the world champion, it was all like very, very special moments. But throughout the entire weekend, my round 1 match against my good friend Francesco Pardini, where I got very lucky, probably the luckiest I got all day. My top 8 match against former world champion, the defending world champion at the time, Naoto, was also very intense. My top 4 against Paul Chua is said by many to be one of the best games on stream ever, so I had a lot of fun playing that one too. But overall, like just celebrating with everyone as well was something that I'll never forget. The love I got from my friends and family, just everything is just so memorable, so unique, and something I'll cherish forever in my heart.
That must have been such an incredible experience. It's amazing how certain moments stick with you. And speaking of strategies, I'd love to hear your thought on open and closed team sheets. What's the biggest difference between playing with open team sheets and closed team sheets, and how does it change your strategy?
Yeah, I think that first of all, like from game 1, there's less about trying to find out what your opponent's using, right? Before, we kind of had to like take notes of everything, notice every small detail about the movesets, try to guess which moves they'd have. Now, the truth is, most of the time, we already knew which sets were most common, most effective, at least. So it wasn't nothing was too surprising, and there was a lot of scouting too. So I feel like the surprise factor was never really that common, unless for at least for the last few rounds. The first few 5 rounds, it's very easy for you to get surprised. But overall, I think that it was very rare for big surprises to happen deeper into tournaments. So it influences less about the deepest runs, but it influences more about the starting of a tournament. And I personally like how the open team sheet makes it less about surprising your opponent, which is it is a skill, but I don't think it's as impressive of a skill as a lot of others that are involved in VGC in general. I think that one of the beautiful things about VGC is able to find mid-grounds for multiple plays, and that's harder to do when there's closed team sheet, and it gets to a point where sometimes it's unbearable because if you can be punished for finding a good mid-ground just because your opponent had a random move that in that specific scenario was very good, but maybe in many other scenarios wasn't. So personally, I wasn't never a big fan of games being decided on this great idea, because it's not sure, we're benefiting the person who had creativity and to find a good move, but I feel like sometimes players were unfairly unpunished for simply not being able to cover for something that was unexpected. So I personally like Open Team Sheet a lot, even though I think the main purpose of it was to, now that we can't lock battle boxes, I think the main purpose of Open Team Sheet is to make sure people aren't changing their teams in the middle of a tournament. But I think it brought up like other benefits that I very much like in reducing the surprise factor.
That's a fascinating perspective. On that note, do you think the open team sheet format is more beneficial for players who are just starting out?
Yeah, for sure. I think there was also obviously a skill to try and cover for as many moves as possible. And sometimes you could find fascinating plays that would cover for 6 different moves your opponent could have, because you can only have 4, but you don't know all 4, so you cover for many others. And closed team sheet does open up those genius plays, and when you're just starting out, it's harder for you to sometimes even see certain moves coming, right? And it can be very frustrating at times that you didn't even know a certain Pokemon learned that move, and now you lost because you kept practicing into when you practiced, the small practice that you've gotten into the game was into certain types of moves, and now suddenly a random move comes up, right? So it makes it easier for players that are starting out to know what's coming. On the other hand, though, it also makes it, by making it easier for newer players to know what's coming, it also closes the gap on strong players and weaker players, or newer players and more veteran players, and that can be good. It's very good for from the perspective of the player that is just starting, but it can be frustrating for the other players that they feel like the game sometimes even can, because of the luck factor and other factors, it can feel like it's not benefiting the player with the most skill, and that's another factor that makes it so that the player with the most skill doesn't win necessarily, or doesn't have that much of an advantage. But I still think it's good. It definitely helps players who are starting out. And again, I think the surprise factor at times is not necessarily beneficial, and reducing that factor is always good.
That's a great insight for newer players. So, when you are analyzing an opponent's team sheets, what's the first thing that catches your eye?
I think something I forced myself to look at is the Terra types, because those are the ones that can change the most. You never really know for sure what the Terra types are. Even if you know the team, that's the easiest way to innovate on a team, is to change the Terra type. Whereas moves, there's a smaller selection of moves that can be used. I always know that Rillaboom is going to have Wood Hammer and Grassy Glide, as well as Fake Out. It's very unlikely that it doesn't have one of those. I can look for the coverage move, and that's something I try to do. But it's usually not as impactful as the Terra type. So I always try to look for those. That's definitely my priority. Terra, then probably some moves that I am unsure of on that kind of composition. Since we usually get the team sheet as we see the team preview, I actually don't look at team preview that much anymore. I look at the team sheet. So I also look at the name of the Pokemon first there. Sometimes, but obviously I can just look at the game for that. It's not something that only the team sheet gives me. And yeah, I think that overall the Terra types are the most are the key aspect that I try to look at right away.
And that is such a sharp way to look at things. It's no wonder you have so much success. And speaking of this, I want to dig into something specific about your team building choices. I love hearing about your Hisuian Samurott in the Leo Original interview. That's such a unique team. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about your Hisuian Samurott? What role does it play in your strategy?
Yeah, of course. I think that the water and dark type combination is very unique and something that can offer a lot to a team. Because both water and dark are good types. Most teams try to always include one of those. And I found that the latest combinations of team, the latest teams, stuff like Dragonite, Goldingo, when you're running already, when you're already running Goldingo, right, and you want to run Magmar next to it, I noticed that it was very hard to come up with a good dark type. Incineroar shares typing with Magmar and kind of fulfills similar roles at times. So it didn't feel very strong there. King Gambit with Goldingo also has some anti-synergy because of the shared steel type. And in general, they are also setup sweepers, so they kind of have a similar role as well. So I found it hard to find a good dark type. I think dark types are very good next to Goldingo as well, because not only do they resist other dark types, which Goldingo is weak to, But they're also good into ghost types that Golden was weak to. They help against the strategies relying around like psychic moves, like expanding force in psychic terrain. And overall, I feel like the dark typing is just really important to have. And water types as well. They're not easy to come by if, you're not running a rain team. Basque Legion shares the ghost typing, which makes the team even weaker to dark and ghost. So repeating the ghost type was something I wanted to avoid. Also, water typing goes really well with Golden as it is weak to fire and ground, and both of those are weak to water. So I was looking at my options, and I saw that Samurott was one of them. It added both the dark and the water, which I wanted next to Golden. Obviously, it didn't have the best results so far, so I thought that maybe it was a bit of a risk, but it doesn't hurt to at least try. So that's what I did. I tried it, and I was very surprised. I didn't like the first set I tried, which was Scope Lens. With high crit ratio moves, it had a decent chance to crit every time, like 50-50 chance, but and like bypass the intimidates and all and do a lot of damage, but I wasn't liking it very much. I think the Samurott needs to be either Focus Sash or Assault Vest, because it is, even though it walls a lot of common Pokemon and helps defensively, it is also very weak to a lot of other common Pokemon, such as, Sneaslers, Close Combats, Rillaboom's, Wood Hammers, and they just straight up knock you out. Now, you can't do much about that if you're an Assault Vest unless you Terra, but the defensive Terra on a set that is an Assault Vest can still feel like kind of useless, because, okay, now you resist the Close Combat, but you still are very frail on the special side, so it's very easy for neutral special attacks to KO you. With the Assault Vest, at least, it makes it more worth it to go with a defensive Terra. And with a Focus Sash, you can just live the hits naturally. So I thought that it had to be one of those two items. I tried it out, and I really liked the Assault Vest set. I mean, I thought that Sneasler needed a Sash, so I couldn't run Sash on Samurott. But the Assault Vest fit just fine, and with coaching, I had a boost on special defense and defense, potentially, making it very hard to knock out. It also helps against, like, Chalodon with a Sacred Sword, so it has other benefits than just the typing. I think something that tricks a lot of people is, like, everyone thinks Samurott hits really hard because of the sharpness. But the truth is, it uses very weak, like, low base power moves, like Aqua Cutter and Knockoff are low base power moves. Even Night Slash, right? So after the sharpness boost, they get considerably higher, but Samurott's base attack is at the highest. So I think people have this preconception that, like, Samurott is like this crazy damage dealer, when in fact it's more like of a niche Pokemon that fits a specific role. And I think for the team that I had, it was like basically perfect. And that's why it worked for me. It was very key against the Psychic Spam sort of teams. I faced like 4 Indeedis in day 2 of the regional, and I managed to beat 3 of them thanks to Samurott. And it was just really nice to have that all those roles into one slot.
I think that's a good try. That's one of the most unique team in the original for sure. In your Swiss 1-3 against Michael Couch and Leo, there was a turn you had Dragonite and Sneasler facing a Magmar and Terraghost Kingambit. You went for Dire Claw on Kingambit and Stomping Tantrum on Magmar. What were you thinking at the moment? Do you think Kingambit will switch out?
Yeah, I thought Primarina was coming in, if I remember correctly. And I didn't think they would just leave the Kingambit there to get skill shotted, so I read a Primarina switch in. I was very afraid of that, and I felt like even if the Kingambit stayed in, I wouldn't be in the bad spot. So I covered for that switch by going for the Dire Claw. Luckily, I got the sleep, but that was not the goal. The goal was to catch a Primarina. I thought, like, the Kingambit felt pretty useless there. They're probably gonna switch it into Primarina. It's the perfect situation. I tried to punish it with Dire Claw. I think he read my Dire Claw punish, and that's why he didn't switch, or he was trying to set up a specific board with Primarina later on. Yeah, I was reading the Primarina to switch in. Yeah, that's why I did it.
That is such a high level thought process. And talk about this, let's move on to another match. During the top 8 match, it seems like your team faced some challenges against Excadrill after it got the Swords Dance off. Compared to other weathers, Sand teams are not super common right now. So how do you anticipate and plan for those last-in strategies? When you are building a team, what's your starting point?
So I think if you make a generally balanced team in terms of typing, like having those guidelines, like what I said, having a water type, a dark type, thinking more generally makes you cover for more unique strategies that you're not expecting. If you think just of the most common ones, you'll often find yourself weaker to those. And to be honest, when I was building this team at first, my idea was kind of like help have good matchups into what was most common. Like I thought the idea of Golden plus Magmar was good because it tended to be really good into the Dragapult Sneasler combination. The Scale Shot Dragonite was also a very good call, specifically because of the Sneasler and Dragapult combinations as well. And I had those meta calls in mind, and that's why perhaps I was a bit weaker to Sand, since the team was more of an anti-meta. It had some anti-meta aspects, and it wasn't fully focused on being generally balanced. Some weird stuff like the Sand team ended up catching me off guard, and I wasn't prepared for that at all. But in general, I felt like, for example, my team still had options. I think like the mix of like the Scale Shot miss on Tyranitar and me making like, there were some very specific reads that I got wrong against Niels that defined the game, and he could have gone either way if I had gotten just like one different play right. So it still wasn't that bad, but he forced me into difficult positions because I didn't consider it as much. I mean, you can kind of see it by the fact that I was using more unique Pokemon like the Ninetales and the Samurott. Even though Ninetales wasn't that unique, it's still like it wasn't very commonly seen, specifically with those Pokemon. It usually was like, you know, characteristic with a specific core of like Garchomp and Dragonite, not with Sneasler, Magmar, Golden and even Samurott, right? So I tried to like, you know, by the price you pay by running more unique Pokemon that are more so anti-meta is that then when you face stuff that is not even meta, you end up being a little more vulnerable. Again, since I still had the general type synergy in mind and went for more general approaches, I still was able to have tools. It's just that the matchup wasn't as positive as it could have been.
Some players say the competitive scene can sometimes feel like it's cycling through the same Pokemon again and again. Do you ever feel this way as well?
Of course. I mean, I think that there are two different approaches to how you team build and think of Pokemon, right? But I mean, if you look at chess, the pieces are always the same, so it never really changes. And when the metagame gets stale, it becomes maybe more like chess, where you know exactly what to expect, and there's less variation. So the game, in a competitive mindset, or like in an extremely competitive mindset and high hand, I think it can be more enticing and exciting. Because it's just like there's the variation is less of a factor. Like what decides who wins is who plays better, not who has the craziest idea. On the other hand, it's also nice to, you know, the reason why we don't play chess and play Pokemon is because we like to, you know, innovate and find new strategies, and part of the strategy itself is coming up with unique plans. And obviously, like that part can be gone in some metagames. I think there's always a way to innovate, and sometimes I think like innovation doesn't come only on the Pokemon you use. It also comes on the moves you choose. Some like, you know, the move set in general, like the whole set that you choose for the Pokemon, can change how, you know, can be seen as innovation. Like if you use like invest a lot in physical defense, for example, in a Pokemon that usually doesn't, that can be innovation. The Terra types, right? Everything else. And even the way you play a team can be an innovation. I think speaking of Michael Kelso, like we did before, the way he plays his team changes a lot throughout the season. Like he in general, he's just a very aggressive player using a very defensive team, and that he catches people off guard that way. And I think that can be very interesting too. Now it's obviously like harder to notice those details, and it's not as enticing to just look at a match. Oh, it's this team again against that other team again. But it's always like, if it depends on, again, what you're trying to get out of the game. And the beautiful thing about Pokemon is that I think everyone has their own way of looking at the game and their own pleasures that are taken out of the game. Some people love the mind games, others prefer the strategic and positional game. Others just like to, you know, innovate and create new strategies. And I can see how for many people it can be frustrating to just see the same Pokemon over and over again. And I think sometimes when the metagame gets too stale and there's only like two teams to choose from, or like a very small pool of Pokemon to choose from, it's also frustrating because it feels like you've run out of options to get an edge over your opponents. But I think sometimes that can come in very unique ways. You can be creative about the way you play the game with standard Pokemon. The only way to be creative is not by just using a weird Pokemon.
That is a great approach to help players who feel burnout or bored with the current metagame. Thanks for the good advice. But now, let's switch gear to a more personal angle. Is there a Pokemon you always wanted to make it shine in competitive Pokemon, but haven't been able to do it?
I guess, yeah, like, I've always wanted... Well, I wanted to use Mudsdale in the recent formats. I was able to make it shine in 2017, and I was very happy with that, but I haven't been able to do that lately, and I always try to find a way, but I never can. I think that's like one of the best examples, even though I have made it shine before. It's been a long time, 7 years. So I have always tried to make it shiny. I mean, I use it to some success in 2020, 2021, but nothing. Like, it was all online, so it barely counted. I think that's the one I've spent the most time trying to have success with. I think that's like the only one. I mean, I always try to bring back it on top if possible, but it's just not the same anymore. I liked using it a lot in the past, but it's not working anymore, unfortunately. I think those are the main ones. I don't have a lot more because my attachment to Pokemon also comes a lot from competitive, and I feel like a lot of the good Pokemon back then are still good now. So I think, yeah, like lately it has been Mudsdale for sure.
I'm sure if there's a right moment or meta, it will have its moment, and I look forward to seeing it. Speaking of something you love, let's talk about something closer to home, your home. Paldea region in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is based on the Iberian Peninsula. As someone from Portugal, how did you feel when you first saw this region in the game?
I was so excited. I was so happy, and it only lasted for a few minutes because right away I noticed everyone on the internet was just focusing on Spain. Oh, the new region is Spain, and I was so frustrated because it's not Spain. It's the Iberian Peninsula, and it felt so invalidating. You know, like it's like we don't exist. But I was very happy. So I still am. It's still fun for me to visit home in the games. I like to spend a lot of time in the Portugal side of the game when I can. I mean, or rather, every time I go there, I'm like, ha, that's so. So I was very happy, yeah.
Were there any specific locations or features in Paldea that reminded you of places in Portugal?
Yeah, 100%. There's Porto Marinada. I think it's like a mix on a lot of different things around there. Like Porto means, harbor, port. And I was born and raised and still live in Porto, northern city in Portugal, the second biggest city in Portugal. And the name of that town is Porto Marinada. However, it's more based on a town that is a little further south than Porto. It's actually more based in Aveiro, more specifically. It's very based on a town I spent a lot of summer vacations on. It's Costa Nova. Because like you see that the house, like the architecture where you paint the houses with strips, like colored strips, like white and red, white and blue. That's like very, very common in that part of Portugal. That's those towns around there. They always had the houses painted like that, and the market as well. It's based on a market I went to as a kid a lot. So I love Porto Marinada. It's like a mix of my hometown and my summer vacation destination for every year, and it just feels like home. I love that one. There are a few others that I recognize, of course. Like you can see that the ones near Alfornada are like very clearly the southernmost Portugal inspiration zone. And it's like I also go there on summer vacation often, but it's like it doesn't have the same attachment because I actually like had a family summer house there in the Porto Marinada of Portugal, and it reminds me of my childhood. That one is very, very special to me.
That's amazing. It's always fun when the game reflects real-world locations so well. But if you could add a touch of Portugal to Paldea, what would it be?
I think I would make it more clear that, like, the Porto, my hometown, I'd make it more clear that it exists there. I think, like, Lisbon also was kind of, like, didn't get a lot of attention, even though I'm fine with that, because Lisbon, they were kind of rivals. But, yeah, maybe make Porto more notable. I think, like, have a river go through the northern area, like the one, I mean, there is kind of a river there, but, like, make the landscape a little more like the landscape we have here. Like the vineyards, like the vineyards, the mountains, the forests, make it look a little more like that part, because I think it looks great for Pokemon setting regardless, and I think it was kind of a missed opportunity not to make it look more like what we actually have there. I think that would be the main feature I would include. Maybe give a little more protagonism as well to Guimarães, the town that that Portugal was born in. It was our first capital back in the day, and it's very beautiful. It has a lot of historical marks and make like castles around that area. Would have been a really nice touch. Like give it more protagonism in the north.
That's such a lovely connection. And speaking of real life, let's talk about something everyone loves. Food. The food in Paldeia plays a big role in the storyline. Would you mind sharing some of your favorite Portuguese dishes and desserts?
Yeah, of course. Francesinha is a very traditional one here from the north. It's like this... okay, you can call it a sandwich. It technically is a sandwich, but it's not really because you don't eat it with your hands. But basically, like it's like bread on top and on the bottom, of course. And then you have like all kinds of meats. You usually have a steak and then some traditional meats from like smoked meats from Portugal, like sausages and stuff. And you have like it's mostly like you put some cheese on it too. You grill it and then you put it on a plate. You put cheese over it. Take it to the oven and you put a special sauce on top. So you can't actually eat it with your hands because it's full of sauce. It's just you're gonna get. It's gonna spill all over you, so you have to eat it with cutlery, with fork and knife, and it's delicious. It's like very traditional from my hometown, and it's fantastic. Obviously, anything with codfish, not fresh codfish, but salted codfish, it's like absolutely amazing and very traditional. I always love having it. My parents-in-law make a fantastic like kind of grilled codfish. It's not really grilled, like they kind of grill part of it and then the rest is like potatoes, and it's fantastic. I love their codfish. Obviously, like there's always all kinds of sweets, like there's a very well-known like a pastel de nata. That one is crazy famous, and it's everywhere. It's kind of funny because for us it's like the go-to snack. When we go to like a cafe, we ask for like a coffee and pastel de nata. It's like it's just a snack to have, like you want to have something in the afternoon, and it's like we don't even see it as like something. It's crazy, like we see the protagonism of pastel de nata nowadays, and it's very funny to us because to us it was just like it's like for anyone else to go and have like a sandwich. For us, it was like the pastel nata, it's like you gotta have it. It's not like it wasn't even like that. It's not that it's that good. It's just like it's really good for the price. It's tasty, but it's not like it's just it's weird for us to see it like being such a protagonist in our industry now. When it's like growing up, it was just like a cake like any other, like a dessert like any other. It was just like right there. Would always have it because it's very practical to like you don't have like it's very hard for you to to swell yourself with it, like it's very practical, quick to eat. It's just like it tastes great, but it's I don't know, for me it's always been funny how much of a protagonist sort of position it has compared to other dishes. I guess also because it's easy to eat, right? It's very easy to sell. It's not like it doesn't take you to sit down and have the whole dish. It doesn't take a lot of commitment. It's just like you grab one, you eat it, it's done. And it tastes fantastic. I think it's a great like ratio between price, taste, and sort of accessibility. It's just a very practical sort of dish, and I think like not dish, like a dessert, I suppose. But there are many others that are like more elaborate and fantastic all over the country, really. I don't think there's a specific one that I would try to sell here, but we have like a big tradition of desserts for sure that if you're interested you can always investigate. Actually, it's funny because our influence has gone to as far as Japan. They have like a very common sort of cake there, like the castera cake there was brought to them by Portuguese, and a lot of food actually, like the katsu they have there, like the it's basically like meat covered in like deep fried meat with like breadcrumbs was brought to them by the Portuguese too. The whole notion of deep frying was brought to them by Portugal. So our influence in dishes has been like also like in Hawaii. I think it was crazy to me going to Hawaii for Worlds because like their traditional dessert was literally like they don't even hide it. They say like it's a Portuguese dessert. We got there and it's like we have this everywhere in Portugal. It's no big deal. It's like a common like sweet we get at like fairs and parties. It's just like we have them and we get there, it's like this won't big deal. I'm gonna have a malasada, and they even make it in like the Sun and Moon game. They make it like a big deal. They have the malasadas, and then I get there like because we call it a different thing. We don't call it malasadas. It's like it's fiage. And I get there and they're like, yeah, this is just fiage, and we were so surprised. But yeah, I know why there's a big influence as well on our of our gastronomy, and yeah, I think like we just have a deep history. I think every country around the Mediterranean Sea just has such great land to raise any sort of cattle, vegetables, fruits, that we just end up having fantastic cuisine, and Portugal is no different for sure.
Well, I can't speak for all Taiwanese people, but at least every single person I know is crazy about pastel de nata. That is one of my favorite desserts as well. This has been such a great conversation. At the end, is there anything you want to say to the Taiwanese Pokemon community?
Of course, it was a pleasure being here. Actually, funnily enough, we faced Taiwan in the World Cup. Portugal did this year. And they were our only loss until the top 16. So yeah, it's very funny because I walking to the run, I was like, guys, be careful because Taiwanese players, they're scary. And I guess my prediction was correct because that was our only loss. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe I scared them. Yeah, no, I have a lot of respect for the Taiwanese community, and it's been a pleasure to be able to talk to you all. So thank you very much for the invitation. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any questions you have, feel free to message me on my social media. I'd be glad to answer anything.
Thank you once again for taking the time to join us. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. We are excited to see what's next for you and wish you the very best in everything.
Thank you very much.
在影片的最后，大家如果想要看 Eduardo 打对战的话，他现在主要是在 Twitch 直播，所以不要忘记到 Twitch 追踪他。大家也可以在影片下方留言祝福 Eduardo 跟他的未婚妻，希望他们百年好合。那如果你喜欢今天的影片，记得一定要按赞。如果你还没订阅我的频道，也记得按下订阅，收看更多有趣的影片。最后非常感谢每个 YouTube 频道会员的支持，下次见，拜拜。